Redesigning schools, decoding signals for an exponential future. Have you ever thought about this movement of things happening gradually and then suddenly it hits you? Well, that's exactly why I'm here today, to talk to you a little bit about these gradual movements that have led us to where we are with respect to education. Let's go back and recap what has happened in the past few years. We've had the internet revolution. It took decades to happen. We then had Web 2.0 that came in. That was the big aha at that time if you were an educator, having the opportunity to finally collaborate with the world with regards to what you were doing in your classroom. Kahoot, Prezi, that took years. Devices to come into the learning spaces, and us having kids and even adults in the learning space with their devices simultaneously while they were learning. That took years as well. And all of a sudden, we have generative AI. Generative AI, months. That's the sudden movement, right? When we think about the gradually, then suddenly, when we think about what has happened, we then see all of a sudden, here we are. The movement of AI. But let's understand that a little bit further with some data. 6.8% of the human population had access to internet once it arrived in society. That was around the year of 2000. Schools that were monopolizing information at that time all of a sudden had to unleash their power. The internet had access to knowledge. Let's continue. 400 hours of YouTube videos were published per minute at around 2015. Think about what that data looks like today. Today, we have over 500,000 hours of video being published. 189.2 billion hours of video are published on the internet. And when we're talking about 500,000 minutes, 500,000 videos per minute, think about that data. Think about how this has exponentially grown. 110 million people had access to online learning in 2019. That was the first time that around that time, that education was now expanding horizons, and there was no such thing as that physical space that you had to go to learn. You could now learn from any institution in the world. 2019. All of a sudden, the pandemic hit. And once that pandemic hit, 1.6 billion people no longer had access to school. So the entire global system was forced to go online. And that was a big learning for all of us in around the year 2020. We were so hooked on how things happened, and all of a sudden that was the big accelerator of technology. And then we might think that suddenly something hit us. But it wasn't sudden, because there were gradual signals that were telling us all throughout the pathway. And when we think about futures thinking, we need to connect to what are the signals that the world is giving us that things are going to change, and that education as we know it will no longer exist. And here we are, suddenly AI, suddenly generative AI. Huge EQ gap. What does that mean? Yeah. When we think about Drew Bent and his words at the Stanford Summit just the other day, he's the CEO of Anthropic. He talks about what is the power behind AI and what is the power behind humans. Yeah. Well, AI has really high IQ, but really low EQ. And that is the EQ gap. That's where the secret lies. Some of us might fear that AI will take over our jobs. But that's not going to happen. That's definitely not going to happen in education if we continue to capitalize on what matters. And what matters is the educator's EQ. That is our most precious asset today in the ecosystem of schools, the emotional intelligence of our educators and their capacity to really build on human connection. As our friend Alex told us today, the power of mentors, the power of peers. And that's exactly what this is all about. So we have a new operating system. The old operating model, content delivery. That's what schools were all about. But then this gradual revolution told us that that is not going to cut it. The new operating system is learning becoming that consequence of thinking, as Ron Richards said from Harvard Project Zero. That's exactly what learning is about, and we can only do that through connection. Learning is a social endeavor, as stated by Harvard Graduate School of Education as well. And in order for us to learn, we need to build social connections, and that is only possible through human development. So what's our goal? What does this mean, redesigning schools? So our goal is to get everybody into this movement and to really cultivate habits of mind that come from Ben Akalik and Art Costa's work. Decades old, but never so fresh. These are mental strategies and dispositions of learning that really help us navigate uncertainty. The educator is the most precious asset in an institution and will continue to be the most precious asset because educators will be elevated to architects. They will be elevated from the role of delivering content to designing amazing learning experiences through human connection. AI is the best tutor and will continue to be the best tutor. It is the best tutor as we know it. But, as our friend Alex pointed out, humans and teachers are the most amazing mentors, and mentorship can really transform the lives of everyone involved in education. We must all have the courage to embrace all of the signals that we have seen happen in the past few decades. We need to stop retrofitting technology onto an old model and trying to fit it in wherever it goes. What we must do is collectively embrace and redesign schools where human connection and deep thinking is what truly matters. The best way to predict the future is to design it. And that means design it collectively through human intelligence and emotional intelligence as well. Thank you.